Hi, hello. This is Sean Graves with Inspire with Sean. And my guest today is an author by the name of Willam Saint. So, without much further ado, for this podcast, we're going to be piecing together my questions, his answers, and going about it as best as we possibly can to adapt with the COVID-19 shenanigans, mayhem, and tomfoolery. So, without much further ado, what got you into authorship? Because for me specifically, when I first started writing my book, Being Happy, it honestly came from a place of two worlds. The first is my education in the process of continual improvement, as well as another class that I had taken many years later in the science of happiness, brought to you in part by UC Berkeley. And so, with part of that is assessing the science of what happiness is and what it means across the board culturally, as well as applying the process of continual improvement, such as the MAIC, and going, well, with these tools, we can also apply them with our lives. And by doing so, can we add value to our well-being, which is like a total mind flip as far as like what people perceive as happiness. So with you as an author, where did your first story kind of blossom from, and what motivated you to beginning that journey, such as becoming an author? Did books and stories resonate with you early on in life? And if so, what books and what authors? For myself personally, I wasn't really good at reading. I wasn't even really good at writing either, because I just could not get a handle on it. And for being an older adult, I was like, I'm done with playing that. Like, I'm done with having the excuses of I just don't read. Because how many people do we meet and we're just like, really? Like, you don't desire to read a book? I mean, how many people in this world have thoughts and dreams and a story to tell? I mean, that it, you cannot be entertained. People need stories in their lives, and it's up to us to either continue the legacy of the hero's journey or to reinvent it or try to find a new version of it out there somewhere in the universe, in our unconscious, or etc. So, like, more recently, it's been a toss up for me that I've desired biographies more so than any other type of book, but I also enjoy the fantasies too. What was or is the difficulty of starting for you as far as like being an author? Because like for myself, it was definitely like, again, I work with music and I work with podcasting and audio sonic engineering. And so for me, I felt like tapping into a new style of voice, even with like reading audiobooks that and creating those, that I was like, yeah, I think I could pull this off myself. I mean, the more difficult part behind it was, well, I guess I had the luxury of not really having a timestamp of when this product was supposed to be done, as far as my first book is concerned. And I think, like, if there was a schedule and someone was expecting a product from me and it was supposed to be the best product possible, I don't think it would be nearly as beneficial and good. I honestly, even like my music isn't even on schedule half the time. I mean, I would try to push out, if I get going on an album, to try to wrap it up in 2 years. and for the first year just try to wing out as much music, and then the next year do as much lyrics and vocals as possible. So for myself, I feel like there was that, as well as like who and how to publish and how to even get your foot into the door. That for myself was a whole Google search for like a week, and then just trying to reassess that situation. It's not easy, but it's also not cheap, and it's not. Uh, it's an interesting world to step in, nonetheless. Where did your story Cold Coffee come from? I actually saw this in a tweet and I got interested because I was like, I like coffee. and to read the story, and it's only chapter 1, but I'm very fascinated by it because, like, I don't know, I just never thought that coffee could tell a story. There is a poem from long ago that I read. I can't remember the author of it. I'll look it up. But it's called Arabic Tea, I think. Hold on. I'm actually now going to look this up because I'm concerned. But it's a poem, and is it an Arabic tea, Arabic coffee? Yeah, it's Arabic Coffee by Naomi Shihab. And I hope I pronounced that right. Naomi Shihab Nye. And it's an amazing poem. I think it's one of those poems that people read in high school and the college level. And I think the exercise is to assess what the author is talking about, because from a point of view of a child, understanding the process of coffee being made. You took coffee and its life beginning in a cupboard and the characters walking in and out of a coffee shop, and even like the finite characters such as like the coffee bean being ground and brewed, just to be enjoyed by a character who seeks to have coffee. It was a very interesting way of going about that, and I was wondering, like, did you just so happen to be at a coffee shop and you were like, ha, I found my character, it's coffee, and what the life process of coffee is in the sense of beginning to end? Because even in my education, as far as like process of continual improvements, there, if you look at a company, as far as a coffee shop, there is a flow process, and the idea is to not waste time and product in the point A to point B situation. And the point B is, as soon as that cup of coffee touches the client's hands and they leave, that is when the timer stops. And there's so much math, there's so many steps involved that I'm curious as to like what exploitations are you either observing and then taking into account as far as the storyline, and how did you come about like taking a character into that and bringing it to life? What is the goal from each book story that you write? Like for myself with Being Happy, uh, the title of it is a tongue-in-cheek kind of title, because we think of human beings and that starts with an H and a B, and I thought, well, we'll just flip it and we'll just call it Being Happy. Because I think that's one thing that people can, without argument, want to aim for. And so my idea was, again, like I said, to bring the science, bring the math and science, and go, boom, here's a product. And if you go page for page, you can go chapter for chapter. You can jump into a section and read and go, huh, okay, that makes a lot of sense, because I take the data, I take the science, and I go, here's the product. Like, all the elements do add up to a greater significance, but there's a lot of study involved. And it's more like, take a breath after you've read this paragraph or this section and go, does that apply to me? You know? So, like with yourself, when you write a book, when you write a chapter, when you read a story or write a story, what is your goal per project? I mean, do you take it as like, one zeitgeist at a time, and then like go back and go, oh, how did I write that? And then the other one going like this, wow, I really wrote something kind of freaking good. I can only say for like myself, when it comes to my music, when I listen to music back in 2008, I'm like, oh, I mean, I had an idea and I'm proud of it, but it's like a diary in that if I open the diary, I can appreciate it for the art that it is, but is it is it on the same par as today? No, and it cannot and it will not ever be, because what I have going for myself today is just apples and oranges, and I'm proud of that. If you're not, then it's like, what have you achieved? You would never be able to understand if you achieved anything if you stayed with the same sounds, the same process, without striving to excel. How did you settle into writing your stories? What is the setup? Is it a pen and pad, or is it like a digital file on your phone, your iPad, your computer setup? Because like for myself, people go like, what's the studio setup? And honestly, for it being a traveling studio, part of it is, yeah, I can pack up parts of it, go record a session, come back, set up, actually produce it in the home base. And other parts of it, it's like, actually, I kind of like it being at home. Even parts of the audio section where I've got the walls, the flooring, everything pretty well done for the space that I'm renting. Um, it also has to be a channeling of energy, for myself to go, okay, this is going to be the time that I'm going to write my song. This is the time I'm going to write my, or sing my lyrics, or something to that effect. Or even if I'm just sitting down and watching a TV show, I'll go, that visual just inspired me to this feeling, and I can express that sonically. And so is it magical? I think to the lame person, if they saw what my studio setup was, it's pretty intense. To maybe someone who's like Taylor Swift, Katy Perry, legendary, it would look quite rudimentary, but I'm proud of where it is and I'm proud of where it came from. So what's your setup like? Is it your bedroom? Is it a specific outside room? Is it something that you just travel along with? So I do this thing called shower thoughts, and it's like random thoughts that happen. And as an author, I was wondering, Harry Potter was fine with sending his kids to a school where he nearly died every year. And I think that's kind of interesting because, like, if you think of Hogwarts, it's not exactly, as we know, is not the safest school to go to. But yeah, after everything is said and done, he just decides, Yeah, sure. I'll just send my kids to the same school. I mean, it's got to be better than what it was when I showed up, right? Isn't there like chambers of secrets downstairs still and spiders still rummaging around the castle and trolls breaking and entering and centaurs out in the forest and crap like that? I mean, what? Why, Harry? Why would you do this to your own kids? I mean, I'm not saying shelter them, but I'm also not implying that's gotta be the only school that, he could have possibly have sent his kids to. I mean, what about homeschooling? What? What? Why is that not a thing? Last but not least, as I usually wrap up the episode and all that jazz, what inspired you today, this week, and this month? And how does that propel you to the future? And also, how does that inspire other individuals? And so I would like to say thank you so much for doing this with me. I know we're kind of shooting this from the hip and trying to make this as best as possible, but if you could just give a um, point of contact as far as where people can find you, follow you, and your journey as an author, that'd be great. And I'd love to do this again. Thanks.